Hi, I'm Lehrer from iTrap Capstone class for the 8th grade, and my project was to create concept art for a book I'm writing. I think it's extremely helpful for people to sort of have an image of what characters look like, and as the author I wanted to make that image as clear as I'd written it. So I have created certain character sketches and location sketches, as well as one prop sketch. I say sketch, but actually all of these have color. They are fully completed pieces, you could say. Yes, so my original objective was, because I had 3 weeks, I would do 3 to 4 drawings. However, I had more time, so I've actually come out with 5 finished drawings. These don't reflect all of the characters in the book, which was not the intention. It's simply highlighting what the manuscript covers so far and what I thought were people who I could really elaborate on in a setting the best with my amount of time. So the first characters that I'd drawn had maybe even been the easiest, even though they entered the manuscript the latest of all of the characters. These are Beth and Bane. They're a set of twins. So the characters are divided into 4 groups, each representing a different aspect of Northern Scottish topography. So Beth and Bane represent the heather, which is perhaps the most beautiful part. It is sort of a flowering plant. It's very light, but it's also very strong and can withstand many of the elements. They follow sort of a similar color palette of purples and blues to that plant. Yeah, they and all of the other characters have extremely pale skin, extremely large eyes. They're very sort of ethereal, which will make sense given that they are actually sort of connected to this fairy realm, which is extremely important in Scottish mythology and actually just Britain mythology in general. The second person who I'd drawn was Claire. Now this is a location sketch. So as you can see, instead of just being on a blank background, Claire is actually in a room, a very pink room. Claire's portrait, I guess you could say, was drawn almost entirely using a symmetry tool, because I based her off the character of Janus in Greek mythology, who was this sort of malevolent crossroads god, or sort of lesser god in the Greek pantheon, who made people have to choose between the right and the wrong, the left and the right, and was often very confusing. Claire, I guess you could say, is the villain of the series, or of the book so far. So her character arc represents how she has to choose whether she's going to be bad or be on the wrong side, or if she's going to work with the trust. And that she is from a group called the Mist, which is the obscure, the sort of, you could call it like the unpopular opinion of all of the different characters. She's very convoluted. She loves to play people off. She's very manipulative. The Mist very much represents that character. The chair that she's sitting in actually represents sort of different mythological creatures. There are dragons along the armrests. There are sort of like snakes and changeling things on the arms. Actually, a fairy hand snatching a child. It's very dark and mysterious, but all beneath this like veneered royal glaze, which is very much representative of Claire's character. Next up is Percy and Nethyra. I had to do a little bit of research for this one, actually for all of them, because it's a historical novel, or at least it has the intention of being historically accurate, I had to really look into like what people would have been wearing, what their rooms would have looked like. So thick velvet curtains were absolutely a staple of the Victorian home. So even out in remote 1850s Scotland, these thick curtains that you also saw in Claire's room would have been representative. Percy is very much, he loves his books, so I've given him a bookcase, but all of the books are behind this sort of glass pane in a very ornate setting, which was, of course, representative of the time, too. Percy is one of the wealthier characters, so it makes sense that he has all of his wishes, his wants provided for. He has a copy of Queen Mab by Percy Bysshe Shelley. Queen Mab was one of, maybe not the most celebrated at the time, but it was a controversial book from a very famous poet, but it also sort of centers on that fairy culture, because it focuses on like the Queen of Sleep, the bringer of dreams, which for Percy would have been a very poignant thing for his character. In the background, her face almost entirely obscured, is Percy's personal maid, Neithyra, who is actually very much connected to him in a way he won't understand. You don't really get to see Neithyra's face in this painting because you wouldn't have seen her face in real life. Servants were supposed to be extremely quiet, very much behind the scenes. So her being seen at all is sort of like, she must have some great merit of character. The Thundercloud was actually a last-minute addition. I wanted to show just how much power Neithyra has, but nobody will realize because she's so people are so blind by her position, they don't see her merits. Even Percy, though he's vaguely looking in her direction, he's looking ahead. He is in the spotlight. He is by far the brightest character in this particular sketch, whereas Neithyra just sort of blends into the background. Next is the prop sketch. So all of the characters receive a letter, and this would have been the stamp or the seal that they saw. I used a tool here to blend the colors so that it looked more liquid. This, to describe, includes all of the different elements of the trust. It has the T, of course, the initial, but up here is the mist, then in the center the heather, down below the sea, and then in between all of that is the earth. This is a lot plainer than the others, but it does carry some meaning. Each of the colors of wax in the seal is representative of something. The darker blue for the mist, the green for the earth, the purple for the heather, and the sort of lighter blue for the mist. However, it all works together to create the trust, which means, sort of in its representation, that all characters are necessary to the formation of the whole. So this last sketch, the last one that I'd actually drawn, is a character who has not entered the manuscript in writing yet. She's still in my mind. She's extremely important. However, she does not have a piece accorded to her. So what I can give to her character is sort of very minimal. I don't exactly know where it's going to go. However, this character with the sort of facial tattoos, the bright red hair, again, the extremely pale skin, is actually a fairy. She is one of the 4 sisters who were the initial trust of Glenmara. She represents the mist, as did Claire. And she was the youngest, the most feisty, and the one who sort of broke the trust, though that will enter the book later. I'm not entirely sure how that will go. She has semi-heterochromia in her eyes, which means that the inside is a sort of dark gray, whereas the outside is a light blue. This is, again, to represent that sort of conflicted Janice element that was present in Claire. She is, again, almost entirely symmetrical, though not perfectly so, to give that that skewed whether she's going to be the good or the evil in this series. Her facial tattoos are actually inspired by a book that I'm reading, a series of books actually called The Mirror Visitor. There are these different clans distinguished by their facial tattoos, but also these tattoos they come from a Viking culture, and the Vikings would have, of course, visited Scotland. They would have been an extremely important element to like medieval Scottish culture. So that's left its imprint here. All of these designs are extremely fluid, extremely flowing. None of them are exactly representative of Scottish runes because it's extremely hard to find accurate ones or to find ones that mean what I needed it to mean for the character. I've done some research, but a lot of the ones that survive today are everlasting knots of varying sorts, or are somehow tied to the Catholic Church, like the Celtic cross, which is not exactly perfect for something which focuses on the pagan culture of Scotland. So yes, thank you very much. That is my video reflection. I had intended to do for less, but I do think that the quality of the pieces is still representative of the effort put into this work. So I think that I've done quite well here. I'm very proud of the art that I've created. It has helped me get a clear vision for the end of the book, the trajectory of the book and where that's going to go, which was the plan and the idea. This has been a bit longer, I apologize, but thank you so much.